You needed outside agitation. You needed inside instigation. And that friction will produce positive legislation. Bars. But
that's bars. Facts.
I mean,
Damn.
rusty, but listen, give me about 6 months in the cipher. I got to get, they got to roast me real tough so I can come back. But
We're good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good. All right, ready? All right. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Conversation Piece, the podcast about the missing pieces of the conversations we're having right here in Indianapolis. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I am your host, and I am so excited to be with you again in 2025, the year of community. Before we hop into this conversation, I just want to let you know, next week, if you haven't seen already, is the launch of the Open Door Sessions. That is going to be where on the third Thursday of every month, we're opening the door from 4 to 5 for anybody in the community to come in and chat. We can only get the 3 of you for 15 minutes apiece, but this is our way of starting to build community, rooted in conversation, and find out how we can come together and build toward better outcomes for all of us. So make sure you go to the link in bio, check that out, and we'll see you next Thursday. But until then, I'm very excited about my conversation today. My guest today needs little introduction, but y'all know I'm gonna do one anyways. So he is Naptown through and through, from high school at Arsenal Tech to the city, county, council, to, in 2008, our nation's capital as a representative of the 7th Congressional District in Indiana. In addition to serving and leading on numerous committees, he's also one of just 3 Muslims serving in Congress, championing causes close to me and my family's hearts, while continuing to keep Indy top of mind. Not only that, his shoe game is always on point whenever I see him out, as well as the content game. And so if nothing else, the man knows what he's doing. Anyways, this conversation has been something I've been dreaming about since we shifted the focus to Indianapolis, and it really does feel like a bit of a full circle moment to be sitting here now, so I will tarry no further, and it is my honor and privilege to welcome Congressman André Carson to the show. So
thanks for having me, Patrick. Thank
you
brother,
so
man.
much.
Streets Fest, I love it. That's my crew.
Absolutely. Those are the teams. Shout out to OJ. Shout out to Jay Brookins.
Absolutely.
I gave you a little bit of involved introduction, but for anybody who, for whatever reason, are listening and watching right now and they don't know who you are, do you mind just sharing a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, I was raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. My mother was like one of my best friends in the world. She was also my mom. She taught me character, discipline. She's a smart woman, very educated, but she suffered from schizophrenia. And because of that, we stayed with some different people, and we ended up in a shelter downtown Indianapolis. And at one point, I was in a guardian home, and my grandmother stepped in to raise me, Julia Carson. And we were raised in then one of the absolute worst neighborhoods in the state of Indiana. It was called Dodge City at the time. It was crack infested. But through that, I was able to also get raised by, proxy aunts and uncles and grandparents who helped my grandmother in that village. And it made me who I am today. So it's a non-traditional journey for a non-traditional fella. But through that, I fell in love with music, man. And I say I'm a failed artist. I've been in several rap groups. I managed a couple of acts locally. I was on a few programs and shows. I was in a group called XN. I won't say that, you'll hear about that later. But I actually wasn't on their recordings. I was on the album cover. Okay. It was a play on Ice Cube's album cover at the time. I was in a group called SWAT Team. I was in a group called Fresh Express. I was in a group called Foothill Cypher, the last group I was in. And we did a recording. My friend Andre, who was also in the group, his cousin was a member of a group called Dose of Soul. They were on the original Nutty Professor soundtrack. Okay. Hoosier Natives. And that was a big deal. So through Andre, we were able to hang around Dose of Soul, and shout out to Stacey McCracken. She's still in the city, all across the country doing her thing. Shout out to Greg and the rest of the crew. And I was able to hang out with them a bit and kind of get insights about the music industry. And I work with other groups like the infamous Catch-22. There's a picture out there floating when we opened up for Too Short. I've been in different groups, opened up for Too Short. I was with a group opening up for DeBrat and Jermaine Dupri at the time. Above the Law, one of my favorites, Ice Cube. And I didn't make it, but I still used that wordplay. You know, in high school, I was a battle MC. And even though my grades were suffering, I grew up in a house of readers. And, you know, we were really forced to read, myself, my cousins, and others forced to read. And so I grew up loving words and wordplay and what that meant. So I hung around the artists, man. I used to cut class. Most people know me from Manual and Arlington. I graduated from Tech. Shout out to Tech. But on the south side of Indianapolis, I played football and basketball for Emma Donnan Junior High. We were the district champs, School 72. And then I went to Manual, and I used to cut class and hang out in Fountain Square and Garfield Park, you know, hanging out with some of my friends, man, who are still living that hipster life, man. Shout out to my hipster crew.
Shout out to the hipsters, 100%. Shout out to the square.
You already know.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
TMI.
Lots to unpack there. I had known a little bit about your music career. I try to do a lot of research before going in. I appreciate you breaking that down. Because,
failed though, brother. Failed.
I don't. It sounds like a success to me. Everything that you shared, that sounds successful.
I still
to me.
support you all.
Well, we appreciate it, and we've had a lot of musicians here in the city on the show, and it's been really insightful for myself as somebody who was not really familiar with that scene to start to uncover some of that history.
Sure.
How does civic engagement? Where does that passion come from while you're doing and participating in creative processes?
Well, that's a great question. You know, my grandmother was a local politician, as is known. She was a very non-traditional politician, perhaps rejected by the political gatekeepers. She was a bit of an outlier, which was great for her. I think it played well for her. And I learned, but she was still my grandmother. So she's raising me. So she's my grandmother / mom of sorts. God bless my mom, but so I'm learning through osmosis. I'm hearing things as a child, Iran-Contra. I'm hearing things about stereotypes involving welfare queens, what that means. I'm hearing terms like Reaganomics, and then into the 90s, Bush as president. So we're talking about Operation Desert Storm and then Desert Shield, and I'm hearing these things. But my artistry is informing me. So I was a young activist. I'm seeing her as a legislator. And I'm like, well, why would I want to be a politician? They don't make any money. We live in the hood. What is this about? Right. But she was passionate, and she had an impact on her community. And I'm seeing people who are of note, of means, and wealthy. I'm seeing governors, I'm seeing mayors come by the house, but we're in the hood. So I'm looking at this thing, and so I became a young activist. And at the age of 17, I was arrested. I was arrested along with another gentleman who's a couple years older than me, outside of a mosque, and we were targeted as young Muslims. So at that time, you couldn't get out of the juvenile facility on the weekend. And when I woke up, firstly, I saw some people I knew. I said, man, your sister told me you moved down south. He said, no, I've been here. I said, okay. I said, no wonder I didn't see you in school. And so the head of the facility at the time, kind gentleman, he said, these people won't leave the parking lot until they know you're okay. I'm like, who is he talking about? I look outside, I see a sea of people in the parking lot, a bunch of Muslims, the community groups. I see some fellow musicians. I see a lot of people. I see a few pastors. I see some of the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Gods and Earths from the 5 Percenters. I see them out there, and I'm like, wow, this is real. So they released me. The other guy was actually an adult. I was only 17, so he was released. He was also an artist. And we get to court Monday, and they tell me that the charges have been dropped. I never saw a judge. I get back to school because it was on the news, but it wasn't reported who I was because I was a juvenile. The word spread. So it's lit. But it changed my focus growing up watching my grandmother, because I felt at that time you needed outside agitation. You needed to protest. You needed to be in the streets. And it took me evolving and understanding that you needed both. You needed outside agitation. You needed inside instigation. And that friction will produce positive legislation, bars. But
That's bars.
bars.
Facts.
I mean,
Damn.
rusty, but listen, give me about 6 months in the cipher. I got to get, they got to roast me real tough so I can come back. But I think it was that growth. So I worked with some local politicians, Andy Jacobs, who was a big mentor of mine, folks like Bill Crawford, folks like Glenn Howard, and I'm going to miss a lot of people as I'm talking. Even folks like, Carl Drummer and a few other folks, working with them. Judge David Shaheed, I co-managed his judicial campaign along with one of his daughters and my former sister-in-law. And I decided to run for school board. And I lost. I lost the school board race. It was a special election. And I was told that some of the people were digging up my transcripts, which were not stellar. But folks who went to school with me will tell you I used to walk around with the dictionary, And
Reader.
Absolute reader. Readers they say leaders. So that loss really transformed me.
Yeah.
And, people were kind of mumbling things. Oh, he's a Muslim. He's this. He's radical. He used to be a rapper. Which was at that time was sensitive because I didn't blow up,
Sure.
But it was used as a slur. And once my grandmother passed away, I had to think of ways that I could complement my love of artistry, of poetry, of artists, because artists have always been influential in changing the political landscape. How can I leverage that? So every year in Washington, D.C., and we're trying to get it here, we need some underwriters. In Washington, D.C., we hold a hip-hop caucus and summit of sorts. And we've had everyone from Rakim there. We've had MC Light. We've had Reverend Yearwood. We've had Tamika Mallory, Linda Sarsour. We just had the activists meeting with the artists because the artists are there to hear what the activists have to say.
Yeah.
We always have some Hoosiers there. Don't get it twisted. We may have to have you all there at some point, so talk to me.
Okay.
But it allowed me to see the balance to answer your question of how we can use artistry. And if you look at our social media posts, it's very non-traditional. And it's a way to use KRS-One's phraseology, edutainment. Educate, and then we slip that pill in there to hit you with a little knowledge. So, yep.
Thank you for sharing that. I love this idea, like the outside agitator, the inside
Yes, sir.
instigator.
Yes, sir.
We have to have both in order to affect change, because I think it's easy to get siloed into one or the other. And we're talking about how do you infiltrate systems that have been set up to oppress one or multiple people? How do those people who have been oppressed by said system get in there and then affect that change? And it doesn't happen without the people outside also creating conversation, creating reasons for us to show up in the legislation to make that change. Something else that you talked about, I appreciate you sharing about your arrest, because I've been reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, and I'm thinking a lot about this. Not the system of mass incarceration, but like the under-racial caste, the new racial caste that it creates for specifically young Black men and now young Latinos who get a record, and then when they leave, regardless of whether they're a juvenile or an adult, they carry that with them, and it's now a label that then affects all of their life. And I think what's really amazing and something I wanted to highlight was kind of your success in politics and continuing to run and continuing to show up and continuing to show the people, hey, we can do it this way. Thinking about how that mindset must not have limited you or carried you in that way. And I want to assume because it was community. How much, when you were getting ready to run for school board, when you're getting ready to take on city, county council, as you're getting ready to move more interior, as opposed to your exterior work, how much did that mindset affecting you at all? Or are you in a community of people that allow you to just, this is what has to be done?
Yeah, well, I think for me, having come out of the Black tradition, ever since I was a kid, I still navigated through multiple communities, either through my friends who were Latino, many of my friends who may have been Asian American, either Eastern or South Asian or Desi, and being a Muslim, and some of my white friends on the South Side who I still, keep in touch with. But I think for me, that community piece was important because in many ways I have multiple identities. Either through my own personal history and just my connections with different communities. And so when I ran for office, obviously there was some contention because, people speak fondly of my grandmother, but before she passed, she wasn't well liked.
Sure.
There was a lot of animosity and resentment toward her for different reasons, even though she's genius. I love her to death, but that tends to happen, right?
Well, we don't ever see the accomplishments and praise and stuff until after somebody's gone.
That part.
We don't hear their voice until they have no voice to use.
That part. Absolutely. So I think for me, it's about really helping the next generation come up to be members of Congress. I don't plan on being in Congress for 100 years, but while I'm here, I want to serve honorably and not take it for granted.
For sure.
I want to make sure. So every year we send several Hoosiers to a political boot camp. It's a week-long boot camp to help develop the next generation of leaders because I think it's that important. But I think for me, those communities help identify me because when I ran, it was like there were some people in the party who weren't appreciative of the run, understandably so. And so I had a contentious primary. It took me 5 races to finally get here.
Sure.
And people spent millions of dollars against me, but it was good for me. I won't limit it. I didn't like the fact that my belief, because I'm semi-secular, but I'm devout. But it was weaponized, and people were trying to connect me with terrorist organizations, and they were signaling how somehow I was anti-American. I had a few people who didn't want me to speak at their organizations because of my belief system, and that made me un-American some way. But also, I had a law enforcement background. Interestingly, having gotten arrested, I used to do personal security along with art, and then I got into law enforcement, and that was an interesting experience.
Sure.
That's on part 2.
That could be, definitely on part 2.
That's on part 2. But I think those communities really were critically important because even when I had those contentious primaries, the first person to write a check was Alan Hogan. It was difficult to get checks locally because people were hedging their bets. They didn't want to be seen or on record as having given to me. But the first group to do an event for me on the city council and support me and in Congress was the Asian American community that I had known growing up in the mosque.
Sure.
And so they were the first group to help me. The black folks were rocking with me in a different way. I got your vote, brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm pulling up for you, But in terms of money, it was the Lacy community.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think it just speaks to, so one of the things, I told you about this Asian American project that we were working on.
Love it.
One of the things that we're interested in doing is highlighting the maybe lack of connection that exists between our silos. And I appreciate you sharing that because it shows, like, first off, I know we've only had one Asian American state representative from Indiana, Christian, and he's not even in the state legislature anymore. But I think
Patrick, let's go.
We'll talk about that later.
No doubt.
I appreciate you bringing it up because it shows, like, solidarity is a word that we hear a lot now.
Sure.
But that is, like, to me, a great example of said solidarity because it comes from within the community and within the communal connections that happen between communities.
Yes, sir.
Like, this is when we talk about intersectionality, that's leaning on intersectionality. And maybe we don't know you, maybe we don't know everything about you, but we know enough about your character that we are going to go out on a limb because in this state and for something like that, that's a limb that we step out onto anybody to say we were going to support you. And it obviously meant something to other groups to see something like that happen.
Sure.
And it just speaks to the community, I think, that's here that people kind of maybe not take for granted, but just don't see a lot. I think you, like you said, you bring in Hoosiers in when you're doing stuff at the Capitol. Like you're keeping it in Indiana as much as possible whenever you can. And I think it's so important. You also mentioned that, like, you're not going to be here forever in Congress.
Yeah.
Like so we have to be supporting and investing in our young leaders.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we have people that can take over those positions when the time comes. Did you ever, when you first got into Congress and the euphoria of the win sets in, did you ever have, like, I'm going to be here for 1 term, 4 terms, or was it always like, was there always like, I have a goal that I want to get, and then I can go do something else now?
Kind of a combination. I think that's a great question. The challenge with Congress is that, look, my big dream in Congress is one of my dreams, I guess, is to be a chairman of a full committee. I've been the chairman of a subcommittee. There are several subcommittees that exist within the full committee. I like to be a chairman of a full committee. The challenge in Congress, I just turned 50. The average age of a congressman is 75. So I have members of Congress say, oh, my son is your age. My daughter's your age. I may have more seniority than them, but they're sonning me, and I'm still dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is so my Republican friends have tried to remedy that and put a cap on how long you can serve as a chair on a committee to give other people opportunities. I think there's some genius there. I think what I have grown to appreciate, to answer your question, is the mixture of new ideas and institutional wisdom. If it were just folks my age and younger, we're colleagues, but it's almost like you're a competitor. So they're trying to take your head off, man. So you need some seasoned folks who have fought those battles to kind of act as a fulcrum to balance it.
Yeah.
But you need fresh ideas to say, hey, this isn't working. Work on the messaging. This is how we connect to younger voters and so on and so forth. So it's a balance of sorts. But when you get there, you realize you're sitting on a committee with 4 rows and you're looking up like, man, I'll never be on that top row. And then all of a sudden, a person may not come back the next session. A person may pass away, unfortunately. A person may lose their race. A person may run for mayor, governor. A person may go to the private sector. A person may go back to their state to become a physician again, or a doctor, or start a podcast like this one, or for whatever reason, and you find yourself moving up. But then there's another dynamic where even though you're moving up and you may be eligible to slide in the slot, how much have you paid in your dues? You have to pay dues depending on your committee. Yeah. So you have to raise money not only to get reelected to stay on TV and radio and let folks see what you're doing, you have to pay dues within your particular party. Now, I'm not saying it's pay for play because that money is used to help other candidates.
Right.
But you're running a different campaign. You're out there campaigning to people you don't know from across the country as to why you should be over this particular committee or be on this particular committee. And when you have multiple identities, you have to sell it. So the lure is, the average member of Congress doesn't get that much media attention.
Sure.
And so you have to find ways or bills to be relevant. All the bills that I've gotten passed with Republican support.
Sure.
And so some newer members of Congress, because of this media age, which I love, they get instant celebrity. So while they're popular to the country, they may be unpopular in the caucus because it's like, yeah, you're fly out here, but you're new. Or you took out my best friend, Patrick. Now you're here wanting to pass a bill. Patrick was my man's in them. No, it's not happening. So there's that part.
Yeah.
So there are multiple dynamics that play, and it's a people business at the end of the day. You have to serve your constituents. And I think if you can balance leveraging any attention you get for your district, you'll be fine.
I love that. And you used a word, it boils down to competition. Like we have to compete with each other. Sure. And something that reason this the year of the community is because we're trying to figure out, I'm really interested in how do we innovate further through collaboration over competition? Because I think in competition, somebody always ends up on the losing end. So somebody there is not being served because through whatever solution we come to.
Good point.
And so can we move to a culture of collaboration? And I think all the things you just highlighted are like great examples of that. Even within one system that sits one party, there's competition in there.
Yeah.
And is there a way, I don't know what the solution is, but is there a way that we can move towards collaboration? Because I think at the end of the day, if we're really about helping the people that we're supposed to be helping, including the people that are doing the work wherever they might be, the state house, the Capitol, if we're pushing people to the margins just so a select handful can have that spotlight, is there a way that we don't have to push people to the side? We all get there together. And
that's a great question. I think in a place like Congress, it's challenging because you have 435 members of Congress in the House, 100 in the Senate. So you have that many egos, that many personalities, that many interests. So I represent Indianapolis largely. We're landlocked. A friend of mine may represent San Francisco, which has an ocean right there, maybe connected to ports. So their legislation may be port related, so they have to convince me why these ports are so important, and I have to convince them why high-speed rail from Chicago to Indy to Louisville or St. Louis is so important. So you barter in that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that push and pull, that dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah.
Which actually brings me to kind of like the crux of what I think we want to do from a civic perspective in 2025 on the show. And it's something that we talked with Senator Hunley about at a local level. And I wanted to kind of gauge your perspective on this from the federal or kind of a national level as somebody elected from the state. One of the questions that we're asking is, how do we move, particularly out of this recent election, how do we move to a sustainable shade of purple in Indiana? I think in 2008, that was my first time that I was able to voted for Obama. The energy was awesome.
Yes, sir.
And then we went there. And it felt like this is the shift.
No
but
doubt.
we look at 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024, that clearly has not been the case.
Yeah.
And so as this election ended, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what is the gap? Like, where are we missing? And for us, like what we do here is all rooted in conversation. And so it's like, maybe that's where we start. And so for me, I'm looking at it as an Indianapolis resident who grew up in rural Indiana. When I lived in rural Indiana, I didn't ever see a progressive person ever come through and talk about progressive ideas. So I was very conservative in my ideology.
Sure.
It wasn't until I left and went to the blue dot of Indianapolis where I really started to understand that. And so what I'm interested in, is there a way for us as a city where we sit in kind of our echo chamber of progressivity to start facilitating the conversations that we might be having here with folks who are everywhere but Indianapolis?
No, that's so important. I think one of the benefits that I had of working for the state of Indiana, when I was there, I worked in 22 counties. And what is important in Clinton County may not be as relevant in Indianapolis or in Cass County, Logansport, or even Lafayette. And what Obama was successful at doing, so many things, he's in close proximity, obviously, because he was out of Chicago. Right. He was able to tap into Midwestern sensibilities because if I love Chi-Town. You take away Chicago, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, the same place, basically. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you're not that wrong.
Which is a good thing because I'm a proud Midwesterner. But I think he understood Midwestern sensibilities, so he was able to speak the language of Midwesterners, particularly folks in rural areas. And I think that my experience with the state, traveling around and looking at the poverty, looking at the fact that they still have food deserts like we do, but for them, you know, getting a meal, if you can't go to a grocery store, maybe you're at a truck stop. Here in Indianapolis, maybe you're going to a gas station or a variety store, but you're still not getting healthy options. The food is marked up 3 times higher than it would normally be. It's unhealthy in many regards. That's why I introduced the Food Deserts Act, and I'll reintroduce it, God willing, in a few months. But I think in 2008, Indiana has always had a libertarian streak. We've always had that streak that supported states' rights. So I think what needs to happen is that we have to find our commonalities. I think our end goals are the same. We want economic opportunities. We want incentives for businesses to grow. We want jobs. We want safer community. We want crime to go down, and we want our schools bolstered. Our methodologies vary. Our strategies vary, but the end goal is the same. The question becomes, how do we speak to our common interests without them being so contentious where we can all meet the same end goal? That's where the Patricks come in.
Yo, I swear to God, you just ripped that right out of my mouth. For my particular communities, I have that same question or same thing. It's like, we want the same. We want good, better for our people, better outcomes for our people in our community. But it takes all of us across the spectrum of, so I'm adopted, from people that want adoption abolished to people that love adoption. It takes everybody on those two ends and in the middle for us to actually create a sustainable change that we want to create, at least from my perspective.
Sure.
And
I'd love to hear your story as an adoptive parent, man. I'd love to hear your story. Yeah,
Part 3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We can, but it's like, again, it's like the idea of collaboration.
Yes.
Like, how can we, instead of competing for the resource and for attention, can we find a way to collaborate across these different ideas to create actual working solutions? Because the person that loves adoption, needs to hear from the person that hates it, because they need to know what things that they might miss for whatever solution that they may be trying to create. And if we don't have that conversation, then we're behind the cart, essentially.
Yeah.
You mentioned how, I love what you said about we need institutional, like we need people who understand the institution, and we need new ideas.
Yes.
With this, with like everything that's coming out of the election, I feel like it feels like we're farther apart than ever. From like that conservative or rural mindset to a progressive or liberal mindset. Do you think that we have to go back to the drawing board now? You brought up a lot of great things that we need to do just conceptually. Like if we can focus on these things and we can understand and speak to our common interest, like that is the way forward. Are the literal frameworks and solutions that we need to look at requiring us to go back to square one, or are we able to still build from what is here?
I think it's a combination of both. I think square one will allow us to reassess the mistakes that we've made, but building upon what is already there allows us to celebrate our successes. So, for example, when I worked for the state, I remembered when Walmart would come into these communities, and I'm thinking, Walmart, wow, one-stop shopping, what a relief. But in a small town in Boone County, it was contentious, or in Marshall County, because they saw it as Walmart coming in, putting out the local package store, liquor store, the local tire shop is out of business. The local gas station may go out of business because you have one-stop shopping.
Yep.
So it made me see things differently from a legislative perspective, even though I was in law enforcement at the time, because there's a resentment toward corporate entities. How do we balance the good that some corporations can bring to communities without disrupting those communities' ecosystem in a way that's beneficial for both sides?
I got a part 4 now. I'm just thinking about where that has to do with Taylor Swift and the resident versus visitor, like tourists. So we'll get into that. But I think I've ran over on our time, and I really appreciate you sitting down and sharing so much.
Thank you.
I have 2 more questions, and then we'll get you out of here. The first one is, any advice for folks who are, like myself, activated in this moment and are ready to get involved now? What advice do you have for those people?
Identify a campaign, whether it's a congressional campaign, you're welcome to help us, a mayoral campaign, a city council race, whether it's a representative or a state senate race like Andrea Hunley's race. Identify a candidate who shares your values. You may not agree with everything, which is healthy. Volunteer, help out. And that's how you, one, build your chops. I had somebody say, well, I don't like going door to door. I said, going door to door, feeling the rejection, listening to insights, maybe getting cursed out, will hone your instincts. Phone banking, having people hang up on you, talking to people, saying, you know what, I think it will give you the kind of instincts that my friends who are pollsters could never tap into, because you know what people are thinking. And through that work, when you help out with campaigns, you're building your own army. Oh, Patrick, oh gosh, we used to stay up late night passing out pamphlets. I remember one time and so you're building up your army of supporters because they've seen you do the work. Even the people that you volunteered for can plug you into other networks. So when you're out there, you have credibility because you've already been a warrior. So when you become a general, you're sensitive to what it's like. No one can game you, you know? And I think when you build up that repertoire of networks and influencers and influences, brother, it's showtime. It's showtime. Sky's the limit, my brother.
He's got the new tape coming soon.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Juggernaut Files.
Juggernaut Files. Congressman, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor again to have you here and have this conversation. Last question. After this, you already mentioned it, but after this, how do we support you? How do we follow you? How do we find you? What do we do to help you after this is over?
On the campaign side, it's AndreCarson.com, AndreCarson.com, 317-226-9400. On the official federal side, it's Carson.house.gov, 317-283-6516.
That is a man who has practiced that number many times. We have a dedicated phone number on our other podcast. Still don't remember it. Congressman, it has been, again, an honor, a pleasure, a privilege.
Thank you.
Can't wait to continue following your work. Can't wait to support you and
Thank you, brother.
Whatever we can do.
Keep it up, man. Proud of you, man. I'd love to see you or either one of these folks out there one day.
I appreciate that.
Let's go.
We'll talk about it.
Let's do it.
For everybody else, new episodes every Tuesday on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, conversationpeacepod.com for the archives and everything else related to the show. Conversation Peace Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And last but not least, Open Door Session starts next Thursday, third Thursdays of every month, 4 to 5 p.m. here at the Stutz. Go to the link in bio for more information on that. Until then, this has been Juan the Artist, Mike Lee on the cameras, John Overton on the audio, the Stutz and Pattern for the space, Congressman André Carson as a guest, and I've been Patrick Armstrong. This has been Conversation Peace. See y'all soon. We're good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good. All right, ready?